It's time to spark a revolution. This time it's for Christ with no pollution. Yeah, we see the world got no solutions. Trying to dim our lights, but we translucent. Plus we be fluent with the rhyme flow, give and go. MCs and DJs, here we go. Producers on the beats that's about to blow. It's the Christ Revolution Music Radio Show.
You are locked in now with a special artist-to-artist interview with B.E.R.I.D.O.X. Don't touch that dial. It's about to get good.
Everybody, man, we have a special show today. We got in the house our bro D.R.D. What's going on, my brother, man?
What's going on, my brother? How you feel, sir?
I feel good, man. It's Friday. I made it through all of the hours in the early portion, and now we just coasting.
Yes.
It's like roller coaster ride right now, but it's all good.
That's
so
a good
welcome.
thing.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Welcome to the show.
Well,
man,
thanks for having me.
Definitely. We look forward to having this conversation. You have a history and just a track record of being blessed to be in the music industry as well as doing films and different things. So we're going to cover a lot of those different elements as we go into the interview. But we'll start off with your background, your upbringing. Because sometimes that is the foresight of us seeing how did you get here? Because a lot of people want to be in different positions and roles, and they don't really see how it all comes together. And it also will paint a picture that everyone don't have the same start, but they can still end up there. So it's always cool to hear those stories. So how was your upbringing in your background?
Well, my upbringing was very interesting, I should say. You know,
Okay.
When you're younger, you don't understand what's going on in your life, you know. But
Yeah.
if you continue on pushing forward, you'll start getting some answers eventually.
True.
And, you know, I come from a rough background, you know, born and raised in Brooklyn, Brownsville, you know, so it never really was an easy upbringing far as leaving the house and going wherever direction I was trying to go.
Yeah.
You know, I ran into everything you could possibly think about that's not right to do.
Yeah.
And I also ran into opportunities and things that looked like it could be the right thing to do, you know? And it was just a question of choice. And most of my time, it was always about, you know, okay, what excites me, you know? So, you know, as a youngin', you go through phases, you know, you say, hey, you know, I want to do this. I want to do a little bit of that. Or I want to grow up and be this, you know? So, you know, I was very blessed, I could say very young because, you know, God always played a role in my household, you know, through my mother and through, you know, through my household. And that was one of her things. She always was trying to like teach her kids how to pray, how to believe in God, you know. And like I said, when you're young, you might not catch the whole concept of what she's trying to get you to think and move off of. But, you know, after a while, it all started hitting home, you know, because you start getting into things, you start doing things. So I say that coming out of Brooklyn in those days and that time, that was really hard. Yeah. But I made it. You know,
that's right.
God be the glory. I made it. And, you know, to have the gift and to be able to use your gift and be able to use the power of God working in your life. Yeah. And not knowing how God is working in your life and not even being knowledgeable about the whole idea that God is by your side step by step. Yeah. And then when you finally realize it, it's like mind blowing. It's like a game changer to you, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. That's some good stuff, man, because that's the reality. You know, you're starting out living life and making decisions, what's around in the neighborhood, what is everyone else up to. But I did hear you say, you know, trying to think, what do you want to be? So when you were growing up, did you know what you would want to be? Like, did you already have something in sight in your mind?
Well, I had a lot of ideas of what I wanted to be. You know, it was just the question of like how I was going to get there. You know, but one of the things that I did know for a fact was music was a driving passion in me. Like, it's a household thing, you know, coming up young and watching my mother be the gatekeeper to a lot of these musicians and being responsible of most of these musicians meeting one another and how she opened up her door to the struggling musicians in that time to be able to come in, have a place to practice, a place to eat, even lay
Yeah.
their head sometimes.
Yeah.
I didn't understand why she was so, helpful to that community.
Yeah.
But music was always around me, and her thing was all her kids had to learn an instrument. You going to school, just don't go to school. You better pick up some kind of
Pick up an
instrument or
instrument.
learn something about music, because that was her thing, and it rubbed on all of us. But for me, it carried me a little different because I'm the youngest out of all of my older brothers, and me being the youngest, all my older brothers used to really be like, "Yo, stick with the music, man. You really really good at what you're doing." And
Yeah.
one thing led to another, and next thing I know, the music was my calling. It
Yeah.
was like something you're gonna do in the music, but I didn't know what. So I went through the phases of DJing, human
That's right.
beatboxing,
Yeah.
even down to break dancing. I
That's
know
right.
you might look at me and go, "You know how to break dance?" Yeah, I know how to break dance.
That's right.
So I went through so many phases, from even graffiti writing and everything. And, when I started really like coming into myself as a teenager, I
Yeah.
started realizing like, wow, music is something. It's something about music. It keep calling me.
Yeah.
And I really got really focused in the music, and God was really there. And he was like, "Look, listen, I got a plan for you, but it's going to take some time. I'm going to develop you
Yeah.
for years to come, but it's
Yeah.
going to take some time, and I'm going to get you there."
Yeah.
And then one thing led to another. And yeah, I never even thought I would sell one record or even make a record to more or less sell over 30 million records as a producer,
You got
So
that right.
I knew that was the glory of God being in favoring me. So I knew what it was about at that point. So I started realizing like, yeah, it's got to be more to me, but I don't know yet. So yeah,
So I'm
that's
gonna,
what it's
I'm
really
gonna
all
ask
about.
you a question. I was talking to another artist, and because we have some history with experiencing life, we can ask these type of questions. What do you prefer when you think about your upbringing and growing up in music? Do you prefer vinyl or cassette?
Mm. I actually prefer them both because they're physical product.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, vinyl is a little bit more last longing
Yeah.
than cassette because
Yeah, because if that
cassette, if
cassette
you
pops,
don't
yeah.
clean your heads and you don't clean the machines, it's chewing that cassette up like it's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
And if anybody ever experienced trying to take cassettes back together
Work it, boy.
and
Work
make
the
it work,
magic.
yeah, that's like going into the operating room performing surgery. Like,
It
it's
is.
a real deal.
Yeah, if it
So I
breaks
would say
bad too.
vinyl.
Yeah,
I
vinyl,
would
vinyl.
definitely say vinyl. Yeah,
I
but
remember
I like
getting a
them
little
both.
screwdriver trying to open that cassette up so
Yes,
you can get that and then tape it and then put it back and screw it back.
right.
Yeah.
And then got the little wheel that you try to
Yep.
do, tighten it just enough
You get your
so
pen
yeah,
and do the
you,
rolling.
you get kind of nice in those kind of areas.
And now we can
Yeah.
just reach on our phone and play every album for the past.
Tell me about it. This is like wow. Look
It's
how
incredible.
technology grew.
Definitely grew. Definitely grew. So you were in the elements of hip hop in its formation, the manifestation of it, because you defined the 4 areas. Just didn't get into MCing, but everything else was there. How was that for you being in New York? Because I know I'm in Philly, so I grew up in Philly, so we had
Okay.
similar things,
Hmm.
but not quite the same because you guys had the record companies in your city. So it was like a whole nother level of just access. And just being from New York, like, was it any artists that got into hip hop that you knew at an early stage before, it really took off? What were you seeing growing up in Brooklyn? Was there any artist that was there, started recording and
Yeah. It's funny because Brooklyn was the home and the birth of a lot of incredible MCs that started that whole hip hop, foundation,
yeah,
and I can't say from the beginning, but
yeah,
carried the torch and helped elevate it. I mean, from the Big Daddy Kanes
mm-hmm,
to, to the Stetson Sonic
Oh
and
wow.
Mighty Mike Masters to Majestic MCs. Like the list go on
On
and
and on.
on and on. And then you get the Kwame's, then you get the Special Ed. Then you know, I watched a lot of artists somehow, some way was in the music, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and then they got caught into labels, those small independent labels in those times.
Yeah.
And they were dropping things called white labels at the time, you
Wow.
know, and a lot of them had what we call local success, you know,
Correct.
where the record played on like the Magic Show,
Mm-hmm.
Marley Marl spinning the record, or
Yeah.
the what it was, the Hank Lover and Half Pint,
Hmm.
the Mighty Mike Master show, something like that.
Yeah.
Majestic MC shows. It was all that, and then started going outside of New York. I mean, not
Mm-hmm.
New York, but Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Started going uptown. Then started going to Queens and the Bronx, and then relationships started growing. Then I started seeing a lot of artists from all different boroughs. Like somehow, some way, they was getting in the music business.
Yeah.
And I knew then that's where I wanted to go, but
Yeah.
I didn't know exactly how that was going to all work out.
Understood. So when you started playing instruments, were you thinking more I would be into R&B, I would be into versus hip hop? Because remember, hip hop was just starting out. So for all of
Yeah,
us,
yeah, yeah,
we're like,
yeah.
yo, that's cool. But man,
Right.
the R&B singers, you know, DeBarge and Michael Jackson, you know what I mean? All of that was bigger than hip hop
Yeah.
was in those days. So where did you think you were landing?
Well, in that time, being a musician, it was more or less making the drum line, you know, because drums
Mm,
became my instrument of choice. You know,
okay.
I say my weapon of the war of music. You know, drums became that for me.
Yeah.
But I had a great music teacher. You know, his name was Sticks Evans. That's one of James Brown's drummer,
Wow.
and he was training me for like 4 years
Mm,
in music, you know, far as that's how I started learning how to play pianos and different instruments, and how I
yeah.
started growing into my whole musicianship. And it wasn't no specific genre of music. It was just trying to stay in the band because a lot of people was getting cut, you know,
Yeah.
and because we had to learn to read sheet music and do all that, and be really good at it. And
That's right.
you know, because if you couldn't keep up, and Sticks was the kind of teacher who was like, look, man, you ain't got it, man. Just get and go to the gym. You know, he'd send everybody to the gym, like go pick up a basketball, do
Do
something
something
else. 'Cause this
else.
room right here is not for you. You know, I've
Yeah.
watched so many people walk to the gym. You know,
Yeah.
and I was like, I'm not gonna walk that line, no way. So I
Yeah.
kept up, and I actually was a little step ahead because I had an older brother, Booby, who
Mm-hmm.
was a drummer, and I used to play on his drum set,
Wow.
and his drum set was like a full complete drum set. You know,
Okay.
I think he had like a 15-piece drum set, and
Mm,
I wanted to hit every piece of that drum set, but just playing around got me sharp. So when I got into the music class with Sticks,
yeah.
I was already like a little ahead of a lot of people, and that was all, you know, because of my brother Booby. I watch him,
That's
I
right.
learned from him, I studied, and you know, just getting all that locked in,
Mm-hmm.
that's what got me going. So I knew right there, as I was doing the musician part of me, I was learning about hip hop.
Mm-hmm. That's
So
good.
R&B was something I learned how to do, play other songs. You know, I
Yeah.
learned how to play by ear. I
Yeah.
learned a lot of things just listening to all different styles of music because
Okay.
Sticks wouldn't let us play just anything. You know, we played a lot of hard, I call a lot of difficult pieces
Yeah.
because we used to have battles at this place called Kilgore Auditorium
Hmm.
down in Brooklyn on J Street. And it was the battles of the school for, you know, the bragging rights of the year and get a
Wow.
trophy and who has the best band. And we used to be in that every year.
Yeah.
And that's why he used to sharpen us to be prepared for those kind of battles. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was ready and I was prepared. So to find the genre of music, I think I learned a lot about R&B
Yeah.
and pop
Yeah.
first, and then I discovered hip hop.
Gotcha. So that's all the early stages of the instruments. So how many instruments were you playing at that time or
At,
end up now being
well,
able to
at that
play?
time, it was first I went in there for drums, then I learned piano, then I learned bass, then I learned guitar, and then I
Mm-hmm.
learned how to play, a couple different like trumpets and different things like that, flute.
Yeah.
And because what he had was this thing of like, yo, don't get stuck in one place. See if you're talented enough to do more
Mm.
than one instrument. And
Wow.
I found that interesting, and
Yeah.
that actually really built the whole producing thing about me.
That's
So
right.
now when I listen to records at that point, I was listening to each part and studying how a bass player would think when he do bass lines, and
Mm-hmm.
how a guitar player would think when he's doing the guitar riffs, and what a trumpet player would do, what a horn section is about.
Yeah.
I was studying so hard because I was now introduced to the different instruments.
Yeah. So
Yeah, so I
you're
learned a little bit of every instrument. Yeah.
yeah. So when you're in that type of element and you're listening to music now, you're listening to it completely different. Others who aren't playing instruments listen to it like, yeah, that sounds good, but you're hearing things jump out of the mix and be presentable to you. So I ask you this question from the standpoint of those early formative years. What was your favorite song? What was your favorite song that
Um,
you played over and over and over again?
and it was this one song that we learned in the class, and it's a song called "Pots and Pans."
Pots and Pans. I think I heard of
It's
that
uh,
name.
it's one of those like popish R&B, but real funky. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
real groove. It had that bang, bang, boom, bang,
Up
bang, boom,
tempo.
boom, bang. Yeah, it was one of those. That song I played over and over and over and I mean that was my song. And then like when you get into hip hop, then you
Yeah.
hear the break beats, and then I
Yeah.
had a bunch of favorite break beats.
Yeah.
Apache. I had UTF. What is UFO? I
Mm,
had Sing Sing. It was a bunch of those
a
breaks
bunch.
that it was just music was grabbing me like in a way like I've never. It,
Wow.
it almost felt like a relationship.
Yeah.
I fell in love.
Yeah. It is. I mean, for those
Yeah.
who grew up in music, we know what you're talking about. Like you
Yes.
had your
Yes.
own
Yes.
record player, you had your own stack of records,
Yes. Yes.
you used to know all the different labels and you say, "Oh, this is RCA.
Yeah, I know
This is
what
Atlantic.
label,
This is
colors, and who was on that
yeah.
label. Yeah, I was real good at that. Yeah, I was studying, and then I look at artwork on the covers for so long while I'm listening
Yeah.
to the song, and then I discovered like how Quincy Jones was involved with music so heavy
Yeah.
on so many different levels. I had to sit there and be like, wow, Quincy Jones did this. Wow, he did that. Wow, like,
Yeah,
and
that's
I,
the definitions of
yeah,
producer. Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
So, who is your favorite producer if you're thinking about overall
I
in
had a
your
couple. I had a
yeah.
couple. Teddy Riley was my favorite.
Hmm.
Um, far as R&B, Babyface, Terry Lewis, Jimmy Jam,
Yeah.
and these are those producers from that time and that era. Then who else? Who else? Quincy Jones was my
Yeah.
favorite. It was a couple. It was a couple. I mean, I and then even in the hip hop world, from the Pete Rocks to
Mm-hmm.
the Marley Marl
Yeah.
to those guys to even a guy remember Devontae Swain from
Hmm.
Jodeci. He
Yeah.
was one of
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
favorite. Like it was a couple producers that really set fire to me. Like I,
Mm-hmm.
I I just enjoy like the way they created.
Yeah. So, how was your mind spinning when you're hearing those type of records come out and those producers, the mixes and stuff, and your mind is spinning to say, I think I can create that type of music on that type of level? Was that starting to stir a fire in you to say, I gotta get some equipment now so I can find out how good I am and test myself? Was those some of your feelings?
It was a lot have to do with I say learning. I was doing more learning from these people. I was like, wow, these guys got
Yeah.
their craft down. Like, cause I didn't know what they was doing. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
know how they was even laying tracks. Like I didn't know how
Yeah.
tracks was laid
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But they motivated me to try to find out. So that's when my internship started happening, where I was going to Z Studios in Brooklyn and interning there and
Yeah.
trying to figure out like what a
What's
studio
going
was
on?
about. But they kept me on the coffee machines and the cleanup, assignments. So I became real good in coffee making and
Yeah.
cleaning up, But those producers used to make me go. I remember when I first heard Guy, when they first came on the scene, and I was so blown away. I was like, man, these guys here. I
Yeah.
don't know what they doing and how they doing it. And then one of a good friend of mine's, Bashir, he introduced me to a man named Roy Bayan, and Roy Bayan was one of the mentors to Teddy Riley at the time.
Wow.
And when I met Royale took me up and said, "Yo, I want to introduce you to Teddy Riley." And I was like, "What? You know Teddy Riley?" So he took me to meet Teddy Riley. And when I went in that studio, because I already knew Z Studios, and it was a very great studio.
Yeah.
But I went into a studio called Soundtracks when I met him. He was down there doing some remixes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think his rack unit and see all those different modules that he was using to make those songs.
A cheat
All
code.
I said in my head, I need that rack unit. I don't know
I'm
what
sure.
is in that unit, but I need that unit.
That's right.
And then that started the motivation for me to want to get ahead and just, start pulling equipment together and start trying to figure it out. So I took my internship a little more serious, and I really started getting good at, listening and watching and taking notes and writing stuff down, So
Yeah.
and then I became I can't even say an assistant engineer, but I came an assistant to an engineer, but without being on the boards. But was able to talk and ask what this knob mean, and he'd tell me, well, this is the high end buttons, this the mids, this the bottoms, and once you learn one slot, the whole board. Next thing you gotta learn is the auxiliary, the bus, and then So I just started learning as I was going along, and then this all started kind of making sense as I was getting into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, was your heart always still focused more primarily on the creation of music and wanting to do that versus the engineering aspect? Because you were right there seeing records being mixed and the outcome of what they went in with dry and what it comes out with all the finishing touches.
Right.
Did that start trying to get in some time of your desire of creating music, or is it still...
Yeah, because I say that it was the combination of it all. Like watching something from the beginning and then hearing it at the end, and then I didn't understand what they was doing when they said we gotta mix this. They like, we gotta mix this, and I was like, what do they mean about mixing? Like, what is that about? And then when I sat into a couple mixing sessions, I started understanding they took all the levels and brought them down. Then start raising everything up one by one, and then they pull the vocals up at a certain place, then start putting everything up under the vocals, and so I just started to understand. But then they had this thing called the reel at the time, where you had slice tapes, so they showed me how to slice tape and set things up, and I was learning the real
stuff, the real recording industry.
I didn't even go to school for none of that,
Nah.
So that was hands-on, experience. That's why I knew I was blessed in, and I knew it was destined for me to do that. So becoming an engineer was something I wanted to become, and then learning like how they was making the production and the producing. I wanted to be a producer, and then I also wanted to rap, because I DJ first, I human beatbox, then I discovered that I can write some words. So then I wanted to rap, and I think I wanted to just be down, because it wasn't even about making a record. It was just like, I just want to see if I can do what these guys can do. It wasn't like I was looking for a record deal or nothing like that. I was just so excited that, that I could be in the music business and do what these guys I look up to is doing. So that played the role. I think I wanted to be it all.
And like you're saying, that gave you an edge. When you started producing, because most producers start out producing, not mixing. It's like you were introduced to the whole thing behind the scenes. Was there any records that came out from that studio that became popular that you were like, I was in the room when they recorded it, or I was in the room when they mixed it?
Yeah, yeah, it was a couple. See, what happened was that studio birthed a lot of like Cyndi Lauper type,
Wow.
Madonna, Debbie Gibson,
Mm-hmm.
all the pop stuff.
The pop.
I started learning to understand pop music a little different because that's where Z Studio was really like known for all the big pop records. At that
Gotcha.
time, it was the producer Fred Czar. He was like
Mm.
this real huge pop producer, and my brother Mr. B, he was like his go-to guy on engineer. Then
Mm.
you had Jeff and Peter from Family Stand used to be in there creating their music. And
Mm-hmm.
it was the home of them pop big record guys.
Yeah.
And I watched a lot of that stuff start, and then I watched the ending results of all that stuff, and I was like, "Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing," And then I see how the plaque came in, and they hung it on the wall. But I will never forget. Every time I walk in that studio and walk down the steps, every time I walk down the steps, all I'm seeing is plaques going down the steps, and I used to always say in my head, "I
Yeah.
want my
One day.
studio. One day, I'm gonna build a place like this in my basement," and it was in his basement because he
Mm-hmm.
had the whole house and.
Mm.
He had the plaques going down the steps. You knew you was going into a studio, and I
Yeah.
said, if I can just get like something like that going on, and I didn't know where them plaques came from. I thought they
Mm-hmm.
made those things and just put them on a wall or something. As
That's
life
true.
goes on, you earn those, and that's the acknowledgement in the music business that they give you when you reach a certain level of success. And
Yeah.
then. I actually was blessed to have nothing but walls full of plaques.
Yeah. So, in that element, you know that the creation of music doesn't mean every record that's created gets out the studio and make it to the record. Where you starting to be introduced to spending hours on something that never really see the light of day because either the label shoots it down, but it's one of your favorite songs, and you're like, they gotta you let this one rock. Like, have you, you
I
seen?
be honest with you, I really seen a lot of that.
Yeah, yeah.
I seen a lot of records was made, but I never heard them come on the radio. And I really wasn't like a part of it
Yeah,
from an engineer or producer's point. I was just in the room.
yeah.
And I used to see them write songs and they come out so good and it sounds
Mm-hmm.
so good. But then the next day they doing another song and I never hear that song again. So
Never
I
come
see a
back.
lot of that constantly going. Then I started going to other studios and that was happening the same way
Mm,
at other studios.
yeah, it's
Yeah, so
interesting.
I've been around a lot of that. Yeah, I see a
Yeah,
lot of that happen.
that's amazing because so much music is created, and then it's like you're not doing nothing with it. Like you just going
Yeah,
to.
I
Now
used
we
to always
know.
say that.
Hmm. And today we know that that record may not have sold with that artist, but they'll sell it to some other artist who would re-sing
Mhm.
it, and next thing you know, it's a hit. And you're like, wait a second, it was a hit before, but it
Right.
wasn't for the right person, quote unquote. So
Yeah, I
you,
see a lot of that. Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot of that that goes on. So when did you actually start producing? When did that moment happen? What did you get your hands on to start crafting your own sounds?
Well, producing became serious for me is when, I tell the story. I don't really talk about it a lot. But I had a
Mm-hmm.
partner named DJ Omega Supreme, and
Mm.
he passed away.
Oh man.
And he was the DJ, and I was the rapper at the time. You
Okay.
know, we had a little group that was called Dr. Darryl D and DJ Omega Supreme, and
Mm.
that was our little combination. But when he passed, I kind of felt the dark space, and I went into a
Yeah.
dark space. I didn't really want to do music like that,
Yeah.
And the gym teacher, Miss Baker, she
Mm-hmm.
used to come around and check up on me because she knew how close me and this
Yeah.
guy was. And she used to always say, "Your guys have some real good music. I don't think you should stop." But it just didn't seem like what I could do. We even had a deal situation with Hurricane Records,
Wow.
and we supposed to put a single out, and it just a lot of stuff just didn't happen. And
Mm-hmm.
the producing thing came from me being depressed and
Gotcha.
didn't really want to produce. So I always had this anger in me.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started back messing with music, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to rap no more. So
Yeah.
I felt it was something missing. But I started producing.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why the music started becoming hard. You know,
Gotcha.
that's when I started making all that, gangster kind of beats and
Mm-hmm.
all those hardcore, because I was in a dark place at the time.
Gotcha.
And that's when producing started kicking in. And then people started telling me, oh, you got some nice beats. You got some nice music.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing I know, one beat go out the door and it gets with someone else. And then it gets with someone else. And then get with someone else. And for
Yeah.
years and years and in and out. And next thing I know, that's what I was doing. I was
Yeah.
producing.
What equipment were you using at that time for the early stages?
My early stages had a history of my first machine. I could be here all day telling you this story. I traded my first machine for a pair of blue and white Pumas and a sheepskin coat. And the first machine I ever got my hands on was called the Sonic Drum. And
Wow.
that's this black box with 4 gray circles and comes with plastic drumsticks.
Wow.
And my little nephew, he had a blue radio that he broke.
Mm-hmm.
And for somehow, some way, they thought the radio was damaged. And I asked them, can I have the radio? They gave me the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And I connected wires together to have the Sonic Drum play out the speakers of the little blue radio. And that was my
Mm-hmm.
first setup. And then from there, I got a Dr. Rhythm. Then I
Yeah.
got a TR-909. Then I got a DD1 Korg. And then I
Mm-hmm.
discovered the MPC-60 Mark II. First,
Wow.
before the Mark II, I had the MPC-60 when they first
Mm.
made it, the
Yeah.
Roger Lynn edition by Akai. And
Yeah.
then I got the MPC-60, and it was called the Mark II. That was the second version of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was history ever since then. And when I got those machines, that's when the producing of DR really started developing up.
So were you more or less sampling, or did you have something to play keys into? Like, how were you crafting some of the early sounds?
I did what we call replays,
Okay.
because at that point, mind you, I'm a musician, so
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I
You
could
got the
listen to
edge.
a record, and I didn't really, because the machines, when it was sampling time before I got the MP
Yeah.
C60.
So after experiencing that and now starting to get more into, because you're
Hmm.
saying beats are going out the door now.
Right.
So it's starting to invite you into different elements where people will want to have you produce, and you'll have a bigger opportunity because this label has this artist signed to them. Because it's hard for us to go through everything you probably experienced, but what was the most exciting time when one of your beats got picked up and it became something that blew your imagination from the standpoint of how far it went? Like one of
Well,
those special ones.
it's funny that you say that, because I never had like a specific time where I
Mm-hmm.
was doing it
Yeah.
a certain way.
Yeah.
Like I discovered that I was making records when one day I'm in the car with my parents and my
Mm-hmm.
brother, and the record came on the radio. And
Mm.
the record came on the radio. It was one of those beats that I programmed and left at a studio.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, wow, that sound like that beat that I made at Blasey Blast Studio.
I know
She's like,
that
what
was
do you
popular
mean?
back
That
then.
sound like,
Yeah.
what do you mean that sound like? So when I started hearing the records, I started realizing that, okay, something is going down. And
Yeah.
now that I know that it's going down, I started understanding, like, wow, what I program people will use. But I used to just
Mm.
leave it on the machines just because the machines was like the way it was set up. They had the machines on. I was so
Yeah.
excited to hit a new machine,
You just
make a
load it
pattern,
up.
and leave. Just leave.
Yeah.
And didn't know that when people came in to do sessions and they hit play, they
That's
was
right.
hearing that beat pattern, and then they end up just adding on to the record. And that's when I started realizing that I was doing something.
Co-producing.
Yeah,
You didn't even
I
know.
didn't really understand,
Mm,
what it was growing into. But
yeah.
I took that whole situation and turned it around. And then when I started explaining to my mother, then my mother started explaining to me what it was going on. And then she introduced me to Abby. And
Wow.
Abby was like the manager, Madonna, Debbie Gibson, and all of them. He started explaining to me. He was asking me
Hmm.
all these questions. What studio you went to? What record you did? And this and that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. And I'm telling them this, that, and the
Yeah.
third. And,
Because
so,
you're trying to go off of memory, and you probably been in so many different
yeah, because
studios, excited about the equipment, and you
there
just,
you go. Being in there playing around
yep,
and messing around and
making
making
hits.
patterns and drums. And that's when I started getting the excitement. Like, wow, that beat that I program at that studio
Yeah.
is so crazy because now people are using the beat. And
Yeah.
then ever since then, I kind of started learning a little bit more about what I was doing.
Yeah.
And then
The
I started
business.
being careful. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. Because that's all intellectual property and all of that creation, and you're supposed to be a part of everything that goes with for the future. And it's like if you have no paperwork, no
Right.
one can be able to valid support it, and yeah,
I
it
lost a
was
lot of what I
early
say
stages.
money
Yeah.
in
Yep.
my
Yep.
early
But it's still
stages.
training. That's the whole thing about it, right? It's still training. It's just that you were apprentice to someone's hit, you know?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
just didn't
yeah. But then when
compensate.
I caught on to it, then I started behaving like, the proper way and started doing things and being more mindful. Then I
Yeah.
started learning about copyrights and,
Yeah.
start learning the business a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because now I realized I was in the business. If somebody going to take a beat and use it, I can't even say they stole it because they didn't even
Yeah.
know I did it. They
They
just
just
heard the
walked in
drum
and God
machine
you put in that
with a beat,
machine.
and it happened to be in the same zone they was in
I
at
said,
the
oh, this
time,
is
and it
hot.
made sense for them. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That makes
so
complete
that's what I
sense.
say.
So what was the first record that you heard that went all the way to the moon, you would say, that you didn't foresee it being that from the creation of standpoint?
Well, I say for me, when I was working with Positive K, and
Mm-hmm.
then he did I Got a Man, then we did Ain't No Crime, um then I got into a situation with Freedom Williams from CNC Music Factory and doing that
Yeah.
production work over there, and that started blowing up over there. It kind of like really all started happening
Mm-hmm.
from there, and then it started growing into something else. And then I was like kind of in a position to gain street credibility at that time,
Mm-hmm.
for producing, those street hip hop,
Records. Mm-hmm.
records. And then it started going there. And then next thing I know, records all over the radio and things just
Yeah.
happening and people are producing records for us getting signed. And it
Yeah.
was a lot of like blessings coming down like heavy on me. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
and that's when I really, really was like sold on the idea like music is you, man. That's what you're
Yeah.
going to be doing.
Yeah.
For the rest of your life, I think you're going to be doing music.
That's
And
right.
I've been there. I've been there and I've done it. So to hear records started happening, then next thing I know, I'm out there in LA at the time at the
Mm-hmm.
Jackson's house.
Mm-hmm.
Janet Jackson was at the time on a Rhythm Nation tour, and I stayed at the
Wow.
Jackson house, and I stayed in the room that she was staying every time she come over to the family house. So
Wow.
I stayed there. I had that bragging rights going around. Nobody
Yeah.
believed me, but yeah, I
Back
told
in
them
the
I was at the
hood, they like,
Jackson
yeah,
house.
right.
I was playing balls with the I was playing basketball with the Jackson. I slept in Janet Jackson's bed.
They said,
Nobody
sure.
like, look at this guy here, man. But it happened. It truly
That's
happened.
right.
And I remember when I beatboxed with Joe Jackson the very first time. That man was
Mm-hmm.
smiling so hard. He couldn't believe me beatboxing like that because I was a very good beatbox.
Yeah.
So it a lot of blessings came out of what was going on with me, but I didn't understand
Yeah.
still at that point how
Yeah.
God was working his magic and developing me to become the person that I am to this day.
Yeah.
So, that journey was like amazing because it was kind of almost like it was meant to be.
Yeah.
A lot of my mistakes, a lot of my bad
Mm-hmm.
situations, good was coming out of it. A lot of my mistakes, good was being made in them. Like it was just so much bad going on and wrong going on, but at the same time, God was like, "Look, listen, we ain't gonna let it go down like this."
Yeah.
So a lot of that was happening. So
Yeah.
I got to experience some real great records in the very beginning, and that hit radio and did a lot and took off.
Yeah. So when
And it was a
did
couple records. Yeah, it was a couple records.
couple? Yeah. Well, when we go through the discography, people online, they would see all the records.
Oh
B.R.
yeah,
is
they
being
can
very
see,
chill right now. Just
yeah,
saying.
it was a lot. I mean, it was a lot of records. Like if you look at my history, you'll go, "Wow, I didn't know this guy." This is the one man band doing all this stuff for all these people. Yeah, but that's how it was for me.
Yeah. And like you were saying, God's hand was still on you, even though the content may have not been glorifying to him. It's just that that's where you were in the creative state. And even with all of the different challenges, because I'm sure it gets even more complicated. I've seen another interview you were talking about when you're working with this camp, another camp can be offended by you working with that camp and is trying to mess up deals and opportunities. And it's like, why is this so complicated? It's just music. And it's like to others, it's not
And it
just
was
music.
serious. Yeah, because one thing I realized is that, through the music, because when I had to think about it, I went into silence when I said, I'm not going to rap no more. I'm not going to even be doing this rhyming thing or whatever because, of my experience of being that and then losing my best friend at the same time.
Yeah.
So that put me in what we call a real dark place. But God said, look, I'm going to develop you and I'm going to bring you back to it. And all these years, and even though that the content wasn't glorifying God, he was designing my craft as a producer, as a marketing person, as a creative person, and all the great things. Because he said, the time that you're going to open your mouth again and speak, you're going to have a reason to talk. And that's why I tell everybody, some people be like, yo, why all of a sudden you rapping now? Or why you, I'm seeing you making records. I said, I got a reason now. Because God get the glory in everything I do now from this point on. You know, so it's different for me. And then, I always use it as like a boxer in the ring and he's swinging, and he out of breath. And then he get that second win. And then he goes super hard and then start winning that fight. That's what I feel God did for me. He gave me that second win. It was like, look, now let's go.
Amen.
And I was like, wow, God, all these years you was developing me. Wow.
So let's get into that. Let's get into when did you get to that, what happened for the moment of you to say, God, I'm ready. I'm ready to shift. I feel you pushing me to this way. You're leading me and guiding me this way. And to slow down on all, because I can look at your discography and I see there was a pause period. You probably just maturing and growing in God. So for you, what got you to that point? And then you can explain it from there because you lived it.
Because what's been happening is that what happened is that I've been in Brooklyn all my life, right? And for a person that born and raised in Brooklyn, I started going to church, and I went to a church. I was invited to a church, and the first church that I went to that hit me like that was Hezekiah Walker Church, right down here in East New York, right there. So I went into his church, and mind you, me walking in, I've never felt that feeling before. I said, wow, this something different about this. Something different about this building. And then I started noticing that I kept telling everybody how exciting church was for me. Everybody like, yo, man, you bugging out, man. You talking about church, man. Church. Everybody giving me their philosophy about church,
Of course.
I was hearing it, I was dealing with it. But I think the real transition happened is the day when I went and got saved. So I left Brooklyn. I moved out there to Atlantic City. Then, I stayed out there. And then I went to another church with Pastor Woodrow McKenzie, right? And when I went to the McKenzie church, that's when I became a part of something because they embraced me They brought me into the brotherhood, and I'm going to a couple of brotherhood meetings and listening and watching these brothers, and what they was giving me from the day when I walked in, they gave me that every time I seen them, and it never changed.
Yeah.
It never shift. They never made me feel uncomfortable to not come back. It was a real solid situation. And I think what really happened is when I got into that process where I was kind of confused of what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Where I got to a point I didn't want to make records, so I just started focusing on product placements. Where, if you're familiar with publishing, you do the submission game for TV and films and commercials, and so I just started doing that for years and years and years. But then I got saved, and when I got saved, I didn't know what that was all about. So I got saved. Then I started noticing my life was changing. So the people that I wanted to be around me so bad and keep close to me, God was removing them.
Yeah.
And I was like, why all the people I like is leaving?
Yeah. You said, what is it about me?
What's this all about? So
Yeah.
the separation started happening. And then I started feeling like, you get to a place where you start feeling alone.
Yeah.
But then now, me feeling alone wasn't me feeling alone. God just put me in a place where I can concentrate now.
That's right.
And he put me in a place where I can hear him now. So my ears was different.
Yeah.
So when people talk, I hear people talk. But when God talk, I was paying attention.
Yeah.
And then he was like, well, this is what you're going to do with your church. You hear how bad their system is in the church.
Wow.
You got the ability to go in that church and fix that problem. So I went in there and fixed the problem of the sound. Then I started realizing these speakers was partially blown. So I started donating speakers to the church and went and bought them a nice set of EVs and turned that church until it sounded like a club. I had that place jumping. You thought you was at a club on Saturday night.
You got to bring some sound. Get the subwoofers.
Tell you something. And my pastor used to come to me. He's like, I don't know what you doing back here in this sound room, but you keep it going.
So you were in a sound room.
So I'm running the sound room now. So I'm their sound guy.
That's
they
right.
never had that before. They had some people, just fix the volumes and whatever. But after a while, I became a part of that church. And then the next thing I know, they talking about breaking ground and expanding the church and doing I'm out there breaking ground with them. I'm out there doing it all. Like I became a part of it where my homie's like, oh, you now turned into a church boy. I'm like, well, call it what you want. That's what I am, because God is working in my life and I cannot deny it. And I ain't going to fuck because y'all don't see it for y'all, So I said, you know what, God, I prayed on it. I said, let me lead by example. Like, let me now become better in what I do. And music-wise, I don't know what kind of music to make. God said, look, listen, you got labels, you got business, you got production company, you got studios.
Yeah.
Create a new company. So Inspirational Rock Boy became the new company. And I was like, I got to find an artist. So he said, no, you don't.
He said,
you're going to be the artist.
That's right.
He said, I've been developing you for over 20-something years to become this. And I was like, wow. And I was like, can I do it? He said, yeah, you can do it.
That's right.
And I went in there and went to work. And God said, look how many albums you got done. I have 5 albums done so far.
I believe.
And every week I just been putting records out. Just weekly records and loading up the system. I got a plan from the top of the year all the way to next year.
I believe
of nonstop releases and music and coming. Then I was like, God, you think I need to be jumping on stage, going to shows? He said, yeah, you do.
Somebody got to see it. That's right.
And he said, you're not going to have to run and do it the way that you think you're going to do it, because now is a thing of where people think image-wise, like, yeah, D, you should get your Bible, you should put your suit on, you should look like a pastor when you come out and do your performance and stuff like that. Yeah. And then I said to myself, if I do that, then who I'm going to appeal to?
Yeah.
And then God was like, no, this is what you're going to do. You're going to stay you, and you're going to go in places you don't belong. You're going to be around people you don't need to be around. You're going to do it so different. Yeah. And you're going to do the music that you was doing in that other world, and you're going to do it in my world, but your content is going to glorify me all day, every day. And that's what's been happening. And God has been so amazing because the records I'm making, I
Yeah,
think now is the greatest records I ever made in my life.
I
That's
feel you, man.
glorifying God.
I definitely feel you, man. I had
So I'm
spun on
like,
the
I can't
show.
wait.
I spun on the show Whole Nother Lit. I did a DJ mix to it and all, and
Oh wow, my brother.
it's just that type of energy. And because I've been around Christian hip hop now since '98, I've
Wow.
grown with it. So with my own ministry and stuff like that. So I totally understand what you mean when God sits you alone and start pouring into you and telling you all of the things that you've been through is not in vain. It's for a specific purpose. And now you're actually living out the purpose. And then that's why you said you can reflect and see, even if bad things was going on, some way, somehow, God was keeping me. I'm evading and getting out of the situations and escaping.
Right.
And it's like, it's not just because of a coincidence. It's like, no, you're called to do it. You have a purpose. You have a calling on your life. And now, like you're saying, how you have music that you can release from now until whenever, it's all because of God's plan and what he wants to
Yes.
do. So now
Yes.
you're just walking in fulfillment of the predestination of what he really wanted to do through you. So, man, I'm excited to see this for you, man.
Yeah, and thank you, brother. And I give God the glory in all this
Amen.
because I kid you not, like this is the greatest feeling I ever had doing
Mm,
music.
wow.
This is one of my greatest feelings, and you know, it made me more of a better person. It made me more closer to God. Now, I got to a place where now I have to go to Bible studies because now I
Yeah.
want to get into the Word more. I want to
Yeah.
be taught more. I want to know more, so I can say more to
Yeah.
help someone. You know, to
Yeah.
inspire someone to come closer to God. You know, and I know now that God put me in a position to be a leader. You know,
Yeah.
he's like, look, listen, I want you to be a leader and I want you to lead that whole crew and those people
Mm-hmm.
that I separate you from their comeback, but they're
Yeah.
gonna come back on different terms.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to come back with a totally different level of respect for where you standing at now in me.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm waiting to see on
Yeah.
that note, but all at the same time I said to myself, I said, wow, God, I haven't felt this creative and my imagination have not been running this wild in a long time. So now I get up with a certain excitement. I look
Yeah.
forward to coming in. I look forward to having meetings. I look forward to Sunday service. I look forward to seeing if my homeboy gonna meet me at church because I tell him all you
Yeah.
gotta do is just come. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't gotta do nothing else. God can do the rest. If you just show up, that's
Mm-hmm.
all you gotta do. Just show up. And you like, yo, D, I'm gonna come because you asked me, man. You asked me to come. I'm gonna come. Yeah, just come. Just show up. Hang out with me. You hang out with me. Meet me down here. You know. So that's my new way of pulling people closer to God and also through the music because right now what
Mm-hmm.
He has planned is amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing. So I can't wait. I can't wait till I'll be
I
able to
believe it.
touch this so many more people, you know.
Yeah.
And I knew it was going to be challenging because at first I was working in fear because I didn't
Yeah.
understand what was going on.
It's the
Yeah,
reality. It's all
yeah.
new.
It was like you be a little scared of like, yo, you do this, then
Mm-hmm.
this, and then you're losing homies, and everybody telling you that you're getting all into God, and I'm listening to everything wrong, but God
Yeah.
saying that I need you to hear that because when these people leave, they
Yeah.
all gonna go, wow, we left, and look what this guy's doing. We need to go and get on that
That's right.
path, but not for me. You got
Yeah.
to do it for God.
That's
So
right.
I'm excited to do that. That's
Yeah.
what I'm excited for. I just walking the walk and I'm talking the talk
Mm-hmm.
and I live and I'm standing on it and I'm not turning around from it.
That's good stuff, man. And the Holy Spirit and Jesus and God the Father is backing you up. So when I talked to a brother earlier this week, he said when God backs you up and he's behind the scenes just connecting hearts to the music, it's like you're in your purpose and it's not for
Yeah.
your glory. It's for God's glory because
Hmm.
so many people needs to be touched. And unfortunately, content nowadays in music or just the internet in and of itself is so like not uplifting. It just weighs
Right.
people down. And it's like, gotta have something different to hear, to liberate, to set free, to
Mm-hmm.
revive, to refresh, to anoint. Like, and if he's using vessels all across the world, and that's the question I wanted to hit you before we close out is, God was leading you to start writing and stuff. But for you and your perspective, you wasn't necessarily thinking Christian rap. You were just being led in the music and what to write about. So were
Right.
you exposed to Christian rap? Did you know any Christian rappers
I had
that
no
existed?
clue what it was about. I didn't
God
know what
does
it
it.
was for. What is, I'm just learning that now. I'm just learning about Lecrae and Bizzle and all these other. I'm just learning about these
Yeah.
guys. Like,
And isn't
because
that
when I went
crazy though?
into it,
That's
I
crazy.
went into it from the heart, you
That's
know.
right.
And the interesting part about it, I can't sit down and write nothing.
Yeah.
Every time I try to write a song, I can't
Mm-hmm.
get it right because I get
Yeah.
into a phase of overthinking.
Got you.
God brought back this thing in me that just, I call it the Biggie Small Jay-Z syndrome, where
Mm-hmm.
put the
Just
mic
flow.
on and just flow.
Wow.
And that's how them records is being made.
That's a blessing.
I said, wow, God, you doing it like that's why they all just like bong, bong, bong. He said, I got a lot of things to do with you. Come on, we gotta go. You
Yeah, we
behind.
got work to do.
So I had to start catching up, keeping up, and
Yeah.
getting ready, and
Yeah.
not be afraid for it.
Mm.
And so when I jumped into it from the heart, I said to myself, like everybody, like you need to go to the church and do this. You need to go to church and do that. I said,
You said,
hold
can
on.
we grow into it,
I
please?
said, can I just first understand what's going on?
What's going on?
Because God is making these plans. Like,
Amen.
I'm quite sure he ain't telling you to tell me what to do because you don't even come to church. So how
Yeah,
you know
that's
I
about.
need to be in church with it?
Yeah,
So
that's.
I'm sitting there and I'm like explaining that to these people, but then I said to God, I pray on it, and God said, look, listen, don't worry about all that. Don't worry about
That's
none of
true.
this other stuff that just not important. Right now is
Mm-hmm.
important is the purpose that I put you in, and let me do my process with you
Yep.
and just walk with me. Just
Yep.
walk with me.
That's good.
So that's where I've been and that's where
Yeah.
I'm at. And now that I'm like learning more about the community, I'm
Yeah.
learning more about the DJs. I'm learning
Yeah.
more about you. I'm learning more about.
Yeah.
I'm so excited, because
Amen.
it feels like I'm meeting my brothers, my
Yeah.
sisters,
Yeah.
in Christ. So it's like wow,
That's dope.
wow.
It's
So I'm
amazing.
excited. So I'm here for you too, brother. If you need me for anything, I'm just letting you know, brother. I'm here for you.
I feel you, man. I'm here for you as well. And that's the part about the community that we're so much excited about. I was talking with Trig, who actually runs Holy Culture, and he was saying to me when we was riding up to New York to go to, because they actually have events in New York. One of them is Kingdom Time Choice Awards. So it's the Christian
Hmm.
Hip Hop Awards. They had it last September. When we was
Oh,
riding
okay.
up, though, he was saying, like, it just seems like God right now is pulling back the floodgate and blessings. Like when you're praying, a fulfillment of the prayer comes a little bit quicker than what it used to be. And
Mm,
it's like the sensitivity of that is God is planning something spectacular. We're all just playing our little roles, but
yes.
ultimately he sees it from a higher view and just rolling it out. So when you finally seen the community and you're like, what?
Yeah.
It's just confirmation to say, no, you're not alone. Because a lot of us would tell you when God started causing us to write raps about God, we felt like we were the first Christian MCs. We was like,
Mm,
I'm the very first. This is going to be awkward and strange. No, it's the plan of God. And when he
yeah.
starts connecting like Voltron, the body, and then you actually do stuff together, it's like, this is what he was talking about. So
Right.
that's the excitement, man.
Yeah, that's an excitement because it's like wow. Because now I do a lot of gigs. I do a lot of running around,
Yeah.
and when I come on and perform, I
Mm-hmm.
be like, yo, first of all, we gonna give God this glory. And the way
That's
my
right.
show tape is set up, They be looking at me when I come off that stage. It's like, yo, was you just up there
Was
going
that
hard
about
on
God?
God?
And you're like, why not?
I said, yeah. I said, why you think I say it's a whole nother lit?
Yeah.
You know, because when God make promises to you, that's a whole nother lit. Like,
That's
you
dope.
think you lit because you doing this and you doing that. Wait till you get God in your life. That's a whole nother
That's
lit.
a whole nother lit.
So
Whole
I'm
nother
like,
level.
let's run with this. Let's go. So, you know, I push it. And when I see people like, yo, I need to get with you, man. I
Yeah.
said, well, if you gonna get with me, just you know what I'm about. Don't come with the craziness, because I really don't got time to entertain that no more. Like, that is really something, like, I'm really, really doing everything in my power to make the thing of the past.
Yeah. I feel
You
you.
know, because
Hey, you're in the Paul
you know,
situation. Paul was like, yo,
because it
that
ain't
was
that
me
serious
then.
no more.
Yeah.
It's like, I ain't trying to break people down. I'm trying to build people up. You
That's
know,
right.
we got enough other people doing that. You know, I ain't trying to help nobody in their work. I'm trying to do what God called me to do, and that's where
right.
I'm going to stand on. You know, so
You said
I'm
DR period.
yes. How they be saying? Period.
Period. That's the dopeness of it. So what's coming up in the future? So you said you're going to start. You have your calendar ready, and you're going to start unveiling more music. I guess you're going to start.
So what I have done, top of the year, I started putting out records.
Yeah.
All the whole month, every week I've been introducing new music to people. You know, weekly. You know, and this rest of this month of February, I will be doing the same. March, I will be introducing a little bit more collaborations. Cool. I got short films I've been writing. I got a new app called the Let's Link Up app that I'm going to be launching off soon. And I got a lot of good things, and I'm setting up now some tour dates. I'm getting ready for South by Southwest, because I'm going down there with the power of God. Like, they never seen it before. I'm like, God, when I go down South by Southwest this year, God, let's do it.
Yeah, that's good.
So I can't wait to do that, you know. And then I just actually got 2 new artists that I'm looking forward to developing up some things on Inspiration with Rob Boy, you know. So there's just a lot of great things that's going on, and I'm just looking forward to sharing all this good information and sharing all these good energy and vibes and picking people up and allowing God to do what he called me to do.
That's a blessing, man. I'm excited for you, man. I'm excited
Thank
for
you, brother.
Everything that, you know, will be unveiled. We're saying, of course, the undertone is always to God be the glory, but he's working in you, and we're excited to see that. Where can people follow you if they're on Instagram, or if they want to go to the web? You know, you can drop
you can follow me on B.E.R.I.D.O.X. And B.E.R.I.D.O.X. has everything. My Instagram, my Facebook, my YouTube. It has everything. You just go to B.E.R.I.D.O.X.
That's what's up. So we had DR in the house. You know, DR, you want to touch on anything before you jet?
Well, brother, I want to say thank you. And I'd like to send a prayer out to everyone. Father, Lord Jesus, thank you for all you do in our life. We ask you, Lord, to continue on doing the great work that you're doing in our life. We ask you, Lord, to allow people to grow in you and allow people to come to you and hear what we got to offer in the name of you, Lord. And we thank you for everything that you do in our life. Amen.
Thank you, Lord. Amen. Amen. Thank y'all for tuning in. Make sure you follow up with DR period. Follow him online on all his socials, as well as add his music to your playlist, because the playlist is the newest thing. You know, no more records, no more cassettes on the phone. Add it to the playlist, and let's go. Let's get it.
Yes.
Peace out. Christ Revolution Music Radio Show.
Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at CRM Radio Show or Beridox 215. You can also follow us on Facebook at Christ Revolution Music. Stay tapped in.